you.
Thank you. I'd just like to acknowledge my colleague here, Trevor Cattermole and Dave Greenslade, have done a fantastic job on this project. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Item number 21, Greater Christchurch Regeneration at Canterbury Sports. You're all fighting over it. So Ref moved it. Andrew, I heard second it. Are there any questions for staff?
Yeah, just one. So,
well, hang on. I'm sorry, Yanni, but just, you know, you aren't the only person.
No, that's cool.
Mike, then Sarah, then you.
Cool.
Who's dealing with this one?
We're just trying to get Richard, but ask the question.
Well, we might be able to deal with it. Okay,
yeah.
Mike.
Just wanted to get an idea around the cost of this process.
Yes.
Oh, Richard. Mike Davidson's just asked a question around the cost of going through this Regeneration Act proposal for Canterbury Sports.
So we're going to enter into discussions with Canterbury Sports Limited with regard to them paying for the technical reports that will need to support any Section 71/regeneration plan that may be put forward by Council. So initial discussions are that they're comfortable with that, but we haven't yet concluded exactly what the scope for those pieces of work are. It's likely to be around transportation, visual, as well as infrastructure.
So we've sort of done something similar with the Cranford base. I'm just trying to get an idea of cost. So obviously this is a private development, and we're obviously stretched a bit with our money. So I just want to sort of try and work out sort of what figure around the dollar terms it's going to cost in terms of staff time and all the work involved.
I think this one will be considerably easier than Cranford. Cranford was complicated by virtue of the fact of the, well, a number of reasons really, transport as well as the quality of the soils. They were very peaty, and the depth to groundwater. We don't think there's any similar sorts of issues out on this site here, so I without wanting to put a ballpark, maybe 100 to 200k, I'd say, but possibly at the lower end of that scale.
Okay. And just finally, so obviously this is quite a good sporting complex with quite a lot of stuff, including an aquatic facility in there, which is quite closely located to another proposed one. Is there any concern about actually the closeness between these two facilities, and also what else we're doing around Christchurch and the potential of these competing against our own facilities?
Yep, that's been an issue which has been raised by our sports and rec people. There is other proposed aquatic facilities which you've alluded to, and that's one of the issues that we've raised with Canterbury Sports, and I think that will be something that will need to be addressed as part of the process.
Sarah.
Thanks. A couple of quick questions. Firstly, I know there were some questions early on with the Cranford regen plan, and especially with the potential conflicts here. Does it actually meet the test for using the Regen Act? Like, is it regeneration, or is it something new? Is it just a private development?
It's the only way that we can actually change our district plan at the moment.
I know that, but I'm just wondering if it meets the test.
Well, we'd have to.
We're yet to do a full report on it, and that's why, as you'll see, the resolutions are to undertake the necessary technical work to support a potential Greater Christchurch Regeneration Act process. But our initial view is that yes, it does.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah. And we've had discussions with Regenerate on that as well.
Yeah. And while we're currently working with them to work out, who pays for the cost for some of the technical work, that's not covered by the resolution. So if we pass this resolution today and they decided not to pay costs, would we be lumped with them because we've passed the resolution? Or should we put a note in the resolution to say that we are that maybe it's contingent on them paying some of those costs?
You certainly could do that. We're, as I said, we're yet to draft the scope of works for those technical works yet, so until we do that we don't know what the exact costs for doing it will be, and then we need to sit down and agree that they'll be responsible for them, so we're just not at that stage.
Yeah, I'd quite like to see that as part of the resolution.
Would they be responsible for, I mean, could they actually undertake some of the technical work themselves?
They could.
Yeah, so it isn't necessarily contingent on cost. It's who it might be that they do the work. Some of the work.
Yes, they might engage someone themselves.
Yeah,
Also for some of the transportation work, we could look to do some of that in-house ourselves.
Yeah. It just because the resolution says direct staff to undertake the necessary work means that should they choose not to, it means that we have directed staff to do it even though there's a cost. And it would give them an out for paying. They would just go, well, you've been told you have to, so we're not going to pay for it.
Yes.
So I think that having something in there would be really useful.
Was it paid for by the various proponents under Cranford Development?
With that one, we had a lot of the work had been done as part of the district plan review because there were submissions on that, so we sought to utilise a lot of the work that we had to do for our evidence for that. So no, it wasn't contributed to by the property owners. So
is that the case with this proposal? Wasn't this proposal put up as an amendment to the district plan in front of the independent hearings panel?
Yes, it was. So I think the key thing with the infrastructure is that the pipes just don't quite reach the site. So it's a matter of who's going to pay for that, and that's probably what an infrastructure assessment will say, and that's the evidence that we gave at the independent hearings panel as part of the district plan review. For transport, a lot of it will come down to parking on site, and obviously NZTA will have a keen interest in it, given its state highway network in and around there. And the other one is likely to be a visual impact assessment. I don't think the visual impact was, my recollection, I can't recall whether that was traversed well at the independent hearings panel, but yep, so some of the work has been done, but we'd want standalone documents, I think, to support a process which were robust, so that we could support it going forward into the Regen Act process. So more work will definitely need to be done.
Well, could we get you to do the preliminary, the necessary preliminary work to support the application and bring that back as quickly as possible? Because the thing that a number of us felt was that this was a plan change that should have been able to be progressed through the district plan review. I remember a number of us, Yanni, I think you raised it, and it wasn't able to be progressed in that context. So I sort of feel a little bit of a need certainly from my perspective to see this really given some focus of attention and due not diligence, but get on with it sort of thing.
Get on with it. We can get on with it. Just to clarify with the district plan review, it did get rezoned from Rural 5, which is basically a rural urban fringe in the operative plan, to open space community parks. So the district plan review did introduce an open space zone to it. So that did enable them to do some of the stuff they want to do, just not at the density that they want to do it at. Right. So, and the key thing they were struggling with at that point was that the panel, made some comments about saying, well, it does appear on face value to stack up for what the applicants propose. However, it was outside the urban limits. So that was as far as we could go in terms of our evidence, in terms of being in accordance with those higher order documents, and that was as far as the panel were comfortable with going as well. So we did make quite a bit of progress as part of that, but we were limited by the higher order document being the regional policy statement, which said, well, it's outside the urban limits, so you can't really rezone it for metropolitan facilities because that is metropolitan/urban in nature. So that's where it got to a bit of a limit as part of that process.
Yanni?
I thought originally we were trying to get a change to the RPS, and ECAN refused to do that. But there was a process.
Actually, Yanni, that wasn't quite like that. Okay. In fact, it was there was a view that it was the other way around, that we were holding it up because it would compete with our facilities, but that is not the case either.
No, I understand that. Yeah. So originally we had like 2 or 3 options. One was to go through the district plan review, but there was also the option around the land use recovery plan when that got amended, and there was another option around the regional policy statement. Now I know that we've moved on from that.
But this is the only way you can amend both of them at the same time.
Yeah, so that process around the Canterbury regional policy statement, that's pretty much, there's no opportunity there with the new government or new ECAN.
No, so ECAN are looking at a full review of the regional policy statement sometime 2020-ish plus, so that might start now. So, picking discrete things out and doing them on an ad hoc basis is not something that they favour.
But they're not opposed to this.
They do.
No, but
they're not opposed to this.
Having said that, they're supportive of this proposal.
It's almost be careful what you wish for, Yanni, because a change to the regional policy statement will take years.
Well, no,
and
so that's what I just wanted to clarify.
This will take months.
Like our district plan, we can do private plan changes or amendments whenever, under normal circumstances, not now, but, so my understanding was ECAN can also make changes to the regional policy statement, like on an individual level.
So
it's
something I think under Section 60 of the Resource Management Act we can request a change to the regional policy statement ourselves, but obviously we would come undone with our own district plan, order and council issues. So the analysis that we've done and that ECAN's done indicates that should the council be in support of this proposal, that at the moment Greater Christchurch Regen Act pathway is the best way forward.
So just in regards to that, there's two options. There's the Regen plan and then
Correct.
the Section 71 designation. Yep. So with those two options, I'm just concerned about the huge amount of technical work that we're about to embark on for this. When we could use one of those options which wouldn't require as much technical work now to get it through, and then that would just become a part of a normal designation. So the designation aspect, why can we not just go down that route?
It both require technical reports. The minister would not make an intervention without having the backing of a report that they can rely on.
No, I'm sure there'd be a report, but my understanding is the level of information and the process around the two are quite different.
No.
The Section 71 is a lot quicker and less requirements, less onerous.
So in terms of Section 71, that again we've deliberately kept the resolution a little bit vague in that regard. I guess the risk with that is that once it goes out for public consultation and goes to the minister before going through its other steps, then it's a yes or no decision of the minister.
So
that's where it becomes a little bit tricky if something pops up through the consultation process where you go, oh, that seems like a good idea. Yeah, it would probably be a good idea to amend the Section 71. You don't have that luxury. So there is a risk, and there is I guess the onus on the proponent to make sure that they get everything right before you put it out for public consultation. So the Regen plan process is you've obviously got your outline. It's a more time-consuming process, but the level of technical information you'd need for both of these doesn't fall away depending on which one you use. It'd still be the same. The minister would still be looking for to know that, yep, it's got the infrastructure, yep, what are the visual effects, what's the transport look like. So all those things will need to be answered regardless of whether you go through a Section 71
I just contrast it to the very limited information we've had around Redcliffe School for the designation.
Now, I'm not going to enter into a conversation about regeneration planning to do with another site. So I'd like to get on with this particular paper that's in front of us today. So if there are no more questions, I'll put the resolution. All those in favour say aye. Oh, yes, you can speak to it.
I won't be voting in favour of this today purely because while I think the concept of the actual development itself is absolutely fantastic, I would like it to go ahead. What we're doing is we are directing staff to do something that is currently unbudgeted and uncosted, and I'm really, really wary of asking staff to do something when we don't have the money set aside or know how much it's going to be.
I wasn't going to. Here is an opportunity for somebody who wants to develop privately amazing facilities in a part of town that doesn't actually have facilities like that at all. It's obviously got a very sports focused, not general public in mind, but the fact that somebody wants to do this privately with their own money on their own land, and it misses out on the city boundary by a whisker, is the point here. And what we would love to have is those facilities for those people who think sport is really, really important in their life and want to spend a lot of time doing it, to actually have those facilities, and we would love for them to be provided. And that's the simple thing as far as I can see. I just think this is a really easy, lovely opportunity for us to take, and I'm delighted that he's doing this and that he's doing it in Yorkhurst. It's great. Any other comment, Yanni?
Yeah, I mean, you know, this has been such a long time and coming, and there's been huge information, I think, going through district planning processes. Appreciate there might be some additional work, but, you know, I think, again, like, we're really fortunate to have someone that wants to commit to this sort of facility. You know, ironically, I compare the car parking that they've already got, 530 car parks, for what they're doing now, and you contrast that to the central city, the Metro Sports. It's about the equivalent of what Metro Sports is going to have with all its development. So, you know, I would hope that there's not a huge need to do a huge amount of technical work, given how much work we've already done around sports facilities, aquatic facilities. There must be a simple way, I think, of getting that information. Appreciate things like the sewer and the technical information around the water's connections, etc. But from a point of view of, this is someone that's been wanting to do things for a long time in the city, and the planning process has created so many, I think, delays and confusion. It would be really good to get some certainty to this development so that we can get this process sorted. So, you know, I have a view of which one we should use through the Regeneration Act. I appreciate you're going to do more work on that. I would hope that you're looking at, you know, what is the most cost-effective, efficient way to get a decision on this site as soon as possible, given the history of it. So I welcome that work coming back to us. I would also just point out that it would be really good at some stage as council to get the strategy and work planning program, because at the moment, I do agree with some councillors that are raising concerns, like we don't actually have an overview as a council over the strategy and planning work program. We haven't had that for a number of years, and it would be quite good just to know how much resource we've got, what it's going towards, so that we don't get into these situations with these one thing coming up and then we don't know what's possibly missing out. But I'm very supportive of this, and I endorse it.
David East.
No, thank you. As one that's generally supported all sport and recreation facilities, and one that's appreciated the support we've had for stuff in the eastern suburbs, I'm more than happy to support this resolution. Thank you.
Look, I'll just wrap this up because I think that this is really important. I remember going to the opening of the football facility that the individual who owns this land had developed, and I remember him telling us how long the consenting took compared to the development of the site. And it was an exponential difference. Now, that was a neighbour who objected. We've asked central government for new legislative powers to come to support the regeneration of the city, and we need to use them. And I think we should be actively promoting and supporting this. The asset that it will provide for the city will far outweigh the technical advice and support that the council gives at this stage. So I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. No. That's carried. Sarah. Yes, an abstention from Jamie, who should have just stayed out of the room until he heard that. Yeah, I hate voting on things. Yeah, didn't take part in the voting. Right. The next item is the